Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another installment of our Star Wars EU book study. This time around, we've got
To the channel. And
continuing our look at Star Wars Shatterpoint, chapters 9 through 12. It seems like a little bit maybe it's a little bit much to bite off tonight, but we're going to kind of keep it at a summary level, but looking at some of the very important themes and character progressions that happened in it. So, anyway, before I get started in that and welcome the chat and all, let's go ahead and bring in our co-host tonight, Mr. Al Baca. Welcome, Al Baca.
Hello, Professor.
Oh, wait, I don't have my. I knew something was weird here. Hang on.
And
Didn't
here I
even
was.
plug in the mic. I knew something was like it's not working right. Hey,
Yeah,
make
you're right. Now that you did that, it did sound kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Everything's good now.
I have a thing I want to let you and the chat know. It's very difficult for me.
Okay.
I too enjoyed the Lone Ranger movie.
Yeah, I
Just wanted to share that with you.
yeah, I know. And I don't tend to mention Al liked it too, because that usually doesn't do a lot for my argument. Welcome to the chat though. Got Go Team Ghost Planet Forevermore was here first. I hope you had a happy 4th as well. My dear Sound Engraver. Great to see you there. And Darth Enigma, Daniel Heron, Anakin Solo. Got more people popping in here, it looks like, from the terms of the watch, and a lot more people watching actually, which is good. So yeah, tonight we're going to continue. We're going to finish out book 2, or part 2 rather, of Shatterpoint. Some really heavy, really important chapters.
We're starting part 2. We're not going to finish.
I'm sorry. Yeah, starting part 2. Yeah, starting part 2. Really heavy stuff going on here. And you might have to pardon me. I think I'm okay right.
Chapters, I will say.
Yeah, I might have to excuse myself at one point to grab a tissue because I mowed the grass today. I'm feeling a little bit of allergy stuff going on, but I think I'm good right now. Okay, but yeah, rough, heavy chapters. But I think they're really important and they really show us character progression and theme development. And honestly, we get into by the end of these, by the end of chapter 12, there's a quote that I'll read in a little portion. I'll read right here, and this truly is what makes me appreciate Mace Windu is an absolute aspirational hero. Really phenomenal moments. So and quote. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Let me see. Whoop, popping the mic around here. Go back to there we go. Okay. So chapter 9. We just finished up the pretty heavy scene already in that bunker where Mace is trying to save the Baliwai. They won't leave, so they stay there when Carvaster comes with all of his act dogs and his act guards and all these people. And it's a pretty heavy scene. Now there's a lot of them that they take hostage. Mace has his encounter with Carvaster. Carvaster ends up killing that boy who was trying to kill Vesh and Chalk when they were in that suspended animation form. So you can go back and check out the last installment if you're a little lost. But that was heavy stuff. In Mace, we talked about how Mace was just like in a stupor. He just is so much darkness surrounding him.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time he'd really been influenced and affected by the dark force that Carvaster carries around with him, which influences everybody. And all of this death and needless waste of life and suffering, he just kind of walks out and just falls down and stares. And they're trying to tell him, look, you need to go. In the morning comes, and that's when the gunships come in, and he can't even move. He just doesn't move. So that's where we left him.
I know it may be a weird comparison, but the way the force is on this planet and all this darkness that's surrounding him, it's almost like Frodo with the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Just bringing him, he is struggling to stay above.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
all that darkness, and it's not easy.
mhm, surrounded by flame as well. Yeah, it's very
Mhm.
much a sort of a Mordor type environment. Um, and yet the the darkness though comes from human beings.
Mhm.
It's that he doesn't even have a Sauron, an otherworldly evil. It's not even a Sith. There's not even a Sith involved by this darkness. And in fact, he's going to talk about that in a moment when he tries to explain Carvaster. But as he's sitting there, he does have some thoughts here. It says, Carvaster, I have much to say of this Lore Pellic. Remember, that was the name in their language for,
Mhm.
jungle shaman or whatever. Of the powers I have seen him wield, from the drawing of the fever wasps out of besh and chalk to the way the jungle itself seems to part at his passage and tangle itself behind. Of his followers, those 6 Coronai he calls the Ack Guards, men he's made into lesser echoes of himself. How he has trained them in their signature weapons, those terrifying vibro shields that he had designed and built. Even the smallest details, the primal ferocity of his gaze, the jungle noise growl of his wordless voice, and how you hear his meaning as though it were your own voice whispering inside your head, all deserve more depth of comment than I can give them here. I'm not sure why it took me so long to understand that he and I are natural enemies. So that's going to come around a bit more. He's going to talk a little bit more about that. But we find out that Mace has had this little vision. He thought he saw Deppa. Remember at the very last line or two of the last chapter, Deppa's voice called, and he turned and he saw her, and we had the little description of her there. But we find out that that was a force vision. It wasn't really her. What actually happened was he sat there. The sun, sunlight came. The gunships came, and he just single-handedly like fought off the gunships and sent them trailing away, terrified. And in his mind, he was doing it with Deppa. It was like their old team ups of the past. She was, back to back with him and stuff. Uh, Carvaster tells him, "No, I sent my men to go find you, and they said you were doing it by yourself. And Deppa was not there. You had a force vision." So he's coming to terms with that, but he realizes that the force visions, there's more truth often than there are in reality. So he's coming to terms with that. So he's moving along and he's going with Carvaster now because he's taking him to Deppa, as Car says, "You are sent for." um, as he catches up with Car, they're moving with all of the Balawai hostages, and again, their plan is to give them to the jungle. I forgot the name for that. The Pelikoton, I think, is the name of it. Which means that you take an enemy, the Balawai enemy, you strip them down. They're naked. They have no weapons, no provisions, and you just turn them loose in the jungle.
Well,
And the chance of survival is hardly
I thought
any.
Pelikoton was like their word for the Force.
Oh yeah. Then what is the word for the jungle treatment? I forget it, but because they have native languages. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. Pelikoton's their name for the force. But anyway, they have this word for the jungle treatment. They're given to the jungle, and apparently we find out that this is something that Deppa uh, came up with rather than killing them. So but Mace isn't having it. This is as good as killing them.
Mhm.
Especially even the children, all of them, all the Baliwa, children, adults, wounded
Ta-
and non-wounded.
Tonpel Trakal, Jungle Justice.
There you go, Tempel Trakal. Yeah, okay, thank you. Mace does have some conversations with Carr as they're out there, and again they argue about the boy. I forget his name, but they're talking about giving him to the jungle, and Mace says, "And the children too." The words seem to swell up Mace's throat and push themselves out at the other man. "You give them to the jungle?" "It's our way," Vaster growled, softened with understanding. "You are thinking of the boy, the one in the bunker." Mace still could not meet his eyes. He was captured. He was a murderer, not a soldier. He attacked the helpless. So did you. Yes, and if I am taken by the enemy, I will get worse than I give. Do you think that the Baliwai will offer me a clean, quick death? We're not talking about them, Mace said. We're talking about you. Vaster only shrugged. Nick caught sight of them in a sardonic wave because he told Nick to watch the kids. Nick is supposed to be hanging out in the grasser with the kids, and Nick says, "I'm not really a babysitter," he called. "I just play one on the HoloNet." And Nick's got an interesting character progression here too that we're going to track throughout these chapters. Really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of like a almost like a quick switch.
Mm-hmm. Owen Lister, thanks for the $9.99 super chat. Says, "Sup, Prof? Good to hear more of the Star Wars apocalypse now. On a different note, I'm on the 4th John Carter book. Thuvia, Maiden of Mars. Man, I do dig the John Carter universe. Yeah, they're fun. It's a shame not more is done with that, but maybe one day. But yeah, so thanks for that. Appreciate the super chat there, Owen. He has this talk with Carr that doesn't go anywhere, but then we get more of Mace's thoughts on Carr, and this is pretty key. He says, "I don't see Vaster as evil, not as a truly bad man. Yes, he radiates darkness, but so do all the Koronai and the Balawai. His is the darkness of the jungle, not the darkness of the Sith. He does not live for power, to cause pain and dominate all he surveys. He simply lives, fiercely, naturally, stripped of the restraints of civilization. He is less a man than he is an avatar of the jungle itself. Dark power flows into him and out again, but it does not seem to touch him. He has a savage purity that I might envy, were I not a Jedi and sworn to be to the light. Black is the presence of every color. He doesn't make the darkness, he only uses it. His inner darkness is a reflection of the darkness of his world, and it darkens the world around him in turn. Internal and external darkness create each other, just as do internal and external light. That is the underlying unity of the Force." So this is a really, we're going to come back to that realization or explanation that Mace gives here, because it's very much key to Mace's plan at this point. So here at this moment, Mace has a plan. He realizes that he's got to save these Baliwai lives, these soldiers, or these hostages, rather. I'm sorry, the
Mhm.
lives of these hostages. And he's thinking about it, and he realizes the only way he can do it. And he sees Shatterpoints. That's one of his abilities. And yeah, Owen Lister said the jungle truly is a character in the book, and in Carvaster is the jungle. He's the stand-in, the avatar for the jungle. And so he's not he's not a Sith in terms that he's not of evil intent. I don't want to cause suffering. Ha ha ha! I want more power for myself. Carvaster is survival. He is if he's looking out for number one, it's because that's the natural instinct of the wild, beastly
Yeah.
part of our brain or whatever.
He's kind of like he's a guerrilla fighter.
Hmm.
He's got it. His cause is his people, the jungle, and like you said, he's not after power like you would normally think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not like Palpatine, a completely different kind of creature.
And I know I'm kind of playing on words here. I know you said gorilla fighter, but he's kind of like a gorilla too. An actual creature, the alpha male beast of his pack. He's got pride. We're going to see here, and he's got
Oh, jeez.
yeah,
Yeah, the whole alpha thing comes in big later.
big time. Yeah, but Mace starts to pick at that alpha male pride. The first thing he does is say, "I'm not going with you anymore." And Carvaster's like, "That's unacceptable. You are sent for," and tries to pull him on. And he tries to use his dark power clutched at Mace's will. "You will come with me." Slowly, reluctantly, Mace slid himself out of the saddle and slipped to the ground. He took 2 steps toward Vaster and stopped. "I no longer enjoy your company," the Jedi Master said. "Go now. Do not return to me without Depa." Vaster's eyes widened. His mouth worked soundlessly. It's like, how dare you? You and I should not be alone together. There might be a fight. Tendon stood out in Vaster's neck, wincing his head around downward and pulling his lips away from his sharp-filed teeth. "I do not wish to fight you, Doshilo." Despite the rage smoking off him in the Force, his voice was soft. "Depa will be angry to find you dead." "Then you'd best be on your way," Mace replied reasonably. "Don't want to make Depa angry, do you?" Apparently he didn't. Vaster's growl thinned to a snarl of frustration. "And what should I tell her you are doing here?" "Nothing that I can be bothered to explain to you," Mace turned to his grasser and took the reins once more. "Any questions Depa might have, she should ask me herself." Though pretending to busy himself with adjusting the grasser's tack, Mace paid absolute attention to Vaster's white-hot stare burning its way into his shoulder blades. He stayed loose and balanced, ready to spring in any direction should the Lorpelic lunge for his back. Instead, he only heard a snarl and a growl and several short, deep yips. Vaster had said something to one of the Act guards who watched the prisoners. With one last glare, Mace could feel as though a lens focused sunlight on his skin. Vaster whirled away and plunged into the jungle, loping up the line of march. So Vaster goes away on his own then.
Mhm.
And Mace tells him, you can tell Depa she can meet me at the steam crawler track. So in the jungle, they are like roads, sort of these tracks where the steam crawlers go in, and that's the best place to to find your way back to the cities or whatnot. So Depa's, Vaster's out of the way now. Now Mace's plan starts to go into effect here, but before he does that, he tries to get Nick on his tells Nick what to do here. He's telling Nick that basically, uh, he's talking to Nick. It's funny. That's why it's kind of like you're talking to yourself. Yeah, he's talking about, so what now? Nick says, you don't dust off the most dangerous man in the Coronel Highland just to come up and have a chat with the president of Rostu Jungle Nannies Incorporated. You have to make a move to make. Mace nodded. We have a move to make. Mount up. You're going to lead these prisoners to the steam crawler track so that the militia can find them and pick them up. Nick's mouth dropped open. We? Me? Why would I want to do something like that? Because I gave them the word of a Jedi Master, and if they surrendered, I would keep them from harm. I will not be made a liar. What's your word got to do with me? Nothing at all, Mace said. I'm sure you enjoy thinking about Keela being disemboweled by a vine cat. When you think of Pell, do you see her starving to death in a grapevine nest or having her eyes pecked out by jacunas? And Nick gets sick. Like, whoa, stop it. You know, because Nick's developed a conscience. He's been watching over these children, and he realizes they're children. They're not Balawai or Corona. They're children, you know? So Nick's starting to come around to it. So we know that's his plan. In chapter 10, we start to see him put it into effect. He goes and talks to the Balawai, and I do like this one little exchange. And Al, as always, you stop me if you want to mention something that I'm skipping over. But pardon my voice too, guys. I'm sorry. It's just the allergies from today. He goes up to talk to the father of the two children. And the father stands up and says, Children's grass rose up by Mace. Please, Your Honor, Your Highness, he sobbed, face down in the jungle floor. Please, don't let them kill my boys. Do what you want with me. It's not their fault. I'd never met a Jedi before. I don't even know what I should call you. Stand up, Mace said sternly. Jedi are not to be knelt to. We are not your masters, but your servants. Stand up. Slowly, the astonished man pulled himself to his feet. The back of his hand smeared a streak of mud below his nose. Okay, he said. All right. What's coming to me I can take like a man, but my boys, what's coming to you is your life, and possibly your freedom as well. The man blinked, uncomprehending. So they have this this conversation where Mace is trying to show him what a real Jedi is, promising them their life, and he tells them just to do what you're told. You know, go with follow in the formation there. And now Vaster's gone, but Vaster has left his Ak guards. And we mentioned the alpha male thing. Mace has kind of put a challenge to Carvaster, at least a defiance. I'm not here to follow your orders. In fact, I'm giving you one. Go and bring Depa to me. So we're going to see how that plays out. But now Mace has to assert dominance over Vaster's guards, those Ak guards, the men he's made into sort of pale shadows of himself. And I love this scene. It's in see, one of the things we see in Mace's progression thus far is that there is an instinct inside of him that would like to come out and just enjoy the fight. You know, that's Vapad, the lightsaber form that he uses. There is, anyway, he enjoys a fight and stuff like that, but he's all about controlling that, making sure that's self-controlled. And we see him here starting to kind of play this game of dominance, but he's not passionate about it. He's not angry about it. So you start to realize he's got some sort of plan here. He goes up to one. Oh, go ahead.
That's what I was. The whole time what was going on is like, is he pushing these buttons because he thinks he's better, or is he doing it for a reason?
Yeah.
And I was like, it just seems so reckless.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wait a minute, he wouldn't be that wouldn't be Mace Windu. And then, of course, later it all makes sense. Mm-hmm. Exactly everything he does, he has a plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just so impressive. He goes up to the Ak guard, And the one Mace had hit the last before, he says, "I don't know your name."
I love this.
"You can call me." "I didn't ask your name," Mace cut him off. "I just don't know it. I don't need to. You should get out of my way." The guard's eyes looked scalded and more than slightly crazed. "Out of your way, little Jedi?" "I am taking the prisoners to the steam crawler track." Mace nodded in the general direction. "I can go past you or I can go over you. You pick." "Over me? Can you fly?" The vibro shield strapped to his forearm snarled to life. He raised them to either side of Mace's face. "Draw your toy weapon, little Jedi. Go ahead, draw." "My lightsaber? Why should I?" Mace raised a finger to tap his own forehead. "This is the only weapon I need." "Yeah," a sneer. Think me to death, you gonna?" "You misunderstand." By way of explanation, he splattered the Koran's nose with a sharp headbutt. The Koran staggered backwards. Mace moved with them in perfect synchronization as though they were dancing, hands gripping the man's massive biceps. When the Koran started to recover his balance, his head naturally coming forward once more, Mace yanked on his arms, pulling him into another headbutt that brought Mace's forehead at the point of the Koran's chin, together with a crack as sharp as a breaking rock. Mace stepped back to let the semi-conscious man collapse. He's alive, Mace said calmly. "So are you for now," because this other Akbar comes up. "The next one of you pathetic nerfs who raises a hand to me will die for it. Do you understand?" The Koran only stared at him with murder on his face. "Answer me," Mace roared. With a convulsive snarl, he threw his lightsaber on the ground at the Koran's feet. Faster than the eye could follow, his hand flashed out, his thumb hooking the Koran's cheek while his fingers dug into the hinge of the man's jaw. He yanked the Koran's face to within a centimeter of his own, and there was open, raging madness in his eyes. "Do you understand me?" The Koran's mouth worked in speechless shock. Mace howled into his face. "You want to die? Do you want to die now? Make a move. Do it and die." The astonished Koran could only blink and mumble and try to shake his head. Mace released the man's face with a contemptuous shove that sent the guard stumbling backward. Mace opened his empty hand and his lightsaber flipped up from the ground and smacked into his palm. He tucked it back into his holster inside the vest. "Never get in my way," his voice growled. "Ever." It's just like, all right, and that's the only way to have. Because think, what were his options with these act guards? That's all they know.
Mhm.
If he would have tried just to say, "No, we're not fighting, I'm doing this anyway," they would have attacked and he would have had to fight for his life or the hostage's life and he would have had to kill them. As brutal as this seems, it was the only way to force them into compliance and to not have to kill
Mhm.
them. I mean, it's just like, dang,
Yeah.
but it's.
But but that but that whole first part, I don't know how familiar you are with wrestling and The
Uh-uh.
Rock. He had this one thing he would do when, like, someone would come up to him and he act like he didn't know him, and he's like saying something like, "I don't know you," and the guy goes, "Well, my name is," and then The Rock will go, "It doesn't matter what your name is," and it just reminded me of that. Uh,
So yeah, I didn't know that, but that's pretty interesting. I'm sure
yeah,
Stover might have had that in mind, who knows. Um so as they're moving along, he's got the grassers going towards the steam crawler track because this is where the hostages can be picked up by the gunships. The One of the act guards comes up to him carrying one of the Balawai. Says, "This one's got a fever, he's not going to make it. Just giving it to you." And he says, Carr's going to kill you for this." And Mace says, "I appreciate your concern." "No concern, just telling, that's all." And he walks away. So Mace thoughtfully watched him go. The two act guards hadn't been hard to co-opt. While Nick wrangled the Balawai into something resembling marching order, Mace had worked his way back up slope to where the one stood watching him, while the other one he'd knocked down still on the ground, massaging his broken nose. So the one with the nose is still sitting there. And I like this scene. Mace squatted beside him. "How's your face?" he asked gravely. The guard's voice was half muffled by his hands. "Why care you?" "It's no dishonor to lose to a Jedi," Mace had said. "Here, let me see." And he reaches down and he realigns the man's nose, pops it back into place. And the man's like, "Hey, feels better. How did you?" "Sorry, I lost my temper," Mace said, standing to include the other act guard. "But I can't back down from a challenge. You understand." The two Koronai exchanged a glance, and they both nodded reluctantly, as Mace knew they would. Vaster had trained them like dogs, and like dogs, their only answer to a pat on the head that followed the kick was to wag their tails and hope they weren't in trouble anymore.
Mhm.
And that's so sad, but that's the type of low intellect you devolve to when you give into that kind of primal don't nobody mess with me, kind of pride.
Mhm.
I'm slighted. How dare you? Those are my rights. Did he say that to me on the internet? Now I'm going to tell him something on the internet. You just lower yourself to this. You might as well be a gorilla walking around beating your chest. You've lost all self control in that moment, all intellect, all you devolve yourself because you're so obsessed with your pride and nobody takes your honor that you're just pathetic. You're just a
Now,
child waddling around in a diaper.
now, do you think that they, under a normal circumstance, would be perfectly reasonable people, but that their association with Carvaster, just like you said, he's almost trained them like
Yeah.
dogs,
He's
and so
remade
they
them into echoes of himself. Yeah.
right, so they wouldn't have been this. Like I said, I can't help but see like the guy trying to wag his tail,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, it is kind of sad that they have, like you said, you use the word devolve,
Hmm.
and that's almost like what they have had done to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It's a devolution. um, and that's key. That's going to come up here to where we're working toward. Owen Lister for another 499 super chat. Thank you so much. I don't know if Owen Lister's putting this in like, is this maybe this is a shaft kind of phrasing? I don't know, but he says, Mace, do you want to die? Then do it. I dare you. I double dare nerf herder. Maybe that's from Pulp Fiction too. I don't know all the references there, but appreciate the super chat. Thank you, Owen. So and then Mace he says to these guys, look, come with us, keep the Balawai safe, make sure they don't stray off. Vaster can't blame you if he can't take me on himself, and he has this kind of he says he starts talking to him. They're like, man, that's a sweet headbutt you got there, and best I ever ate, and they're talking. And he says, if Carr wants these prisoners, he can take them from me himself. How can he blame you for losing if he's afraid to step up? To a dark soaked Corin, this was undeniable logic. Right, the bruised guard said happily. Right. Thinks you're a tumble pup in a vine cat skin him? Let him yank your tail. We'll find out quick enough, I think. And so Mace Windu had acquired a pair of Corrin shepherds for his flock of Valoi. So things are progressing pretty well here.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's
So
got Mace. Go ahead.
I guess the normal Jedi mind trick wouldn't really work on them.
I mean, it would, but it's just so long as it lasted. So long as Mace was able to exert the will, and he's got a lot of other things to
Yeah,
think about. The second Vaster showed up or whatever, then he'd have to worry about this and that. So
yeah, but it's bit. The Corni have this forced relationship. I was just wondering if that would make them less susceptible to it.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much dark force in the jungle there that a lot of normal Jedi ways aren't going to work the natural way. So yeah,
Right.
maybe. It was a Pulp Fiction reference. Thank you. Okay. Um, I don't want to read this whole scene, but it's really funny. I almost want to, but he tells Nick, "Look, I'm going to need an aide here, an advisor, basically." And he says, and Nick's like, my advice is to go back and try and make nice with Carr and this and that. And eventually, Mace tells him, "I want to make you a what does he say? It's got Mace said, a chance to join the personal staff of a general of the Grand Army of the Republic." Yeah, Nick began to look interested. What's it pay? Nothing, Mace admitted, and Nick's face fell. Though when I leave the planet, I will be taking my staff with me. Nick's eyes recovered a little spark. With a brevet rank of, let's say, major, and once we get to Coruscant, I'll be needing staff instructors to train officers in guerrilla tactics. A few months of an urban and jungle warfare consultant affiliated with the Jedi Temple should make you pretty attractive to all those mercenary captains out there. You might even get your own company. Isn't that what you want? Or am I confusing you with some other Corrin whose fondest dream is to travel the galaxy as a mercenary? You bet your sweet. I mean, "No, sir, General. Major Rostu at the General Service." And he's like, "Is there some kind of swearing in I should do?" And then Mace is all, he's making this up, so he doesn't know. So he just comes up with this sort of, he's like, "Put your right hand on your heart," and this and that. Um, but the cool thing is that after he swears Nick into the service of the Republic, he says, I feel you in the Force. And he's like, "That's right. The Force doesn't take these things lightly. You've just sworn allegiance. So you're going to be able to sense me in the Force. I'm your superior officer." There's a connection between the two of them now.
Yeah, but I like his little swearing in thing when he goes, doesn't sound bad at all. I should probably write that down.
Yeah, I should probably write that down. Didn't sound bad at all. Yeah. So they eventually they're working their way to the track, and they get to the top of this like almost like hill or something, where they can see down there the steam crawler track, but it's still about a day's journey away. But they realize, they start to sense Vaster. Vaster's on their tail, and they sense him about to close in on him. So and Nick is like, "Well, we almost made it. Guess we're just gonna die here." And he's always ready to give up. But Mace said, "No, this is So what Mace does is he has the Nick take these lightsabers, and they carve a landing field for the gunships, because the only reason the gunships would be able to find them in the steam crawler track is because there's enough place for them to land. But they're close enough to the track for the gunships to be able to spot the Balawai. So he has the Balawai all sit down on their knees with their hands clasped behind their heads, as though they were about to be executed. Now, this is a big step of faith for them. But then, so the gunships, the Balawai gunships, look down and they see two Korans, Nick and Mace, with these Balawai hostages there. So he's made it look like you need to come in and rescue these people now. And they can't quite shoot Nick and Mace because they're too close. And then Nick and Mace kind of move along. So he's successfully rescued the Balawai. Those hostages are free now. They're going back home. But now it's time to answer the car. Let's see. I'm trying to find the part here. Night was falling. Let's see. He's bringing. So we find out that Vaster is bringing Depa. That's who he's bringing to Mace here. Now, I don't really have Al. If you want to read certain parts of this, you're welcome to. But this chapter, is it 12 here? Chapter 11. We're on chapter 11 right now. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Nick is talking about a hostage, or Mace is talking about a hostage. Excuse me. Sorry, Mike there. And he said, "There's one hostage a Jedi can take." And Nick's like, "It's not me, right?" And he says, "No, it's not you. But there's one hostage a Jedi is able to take." Vaster's there and is ready to fight him. Mace, we find out Mace says, "I'm talking to Depa. Thank you for bringing to me basically like I asked you to." And Vaster's just like huffing and puffing. He's just like pawing the ground out there, and he's watching Mace, and he's letting Mace go talk to Depa because Depa wanted to talk to Mace. But this is just like, and Mace just keeps, and he says he looks at Vaster and he sees his Shatterpoint. He sees the Shatterpoint situation. We don't know what it is. And he just starts disrespecting Vaster all over the place to his face. The act guards around are like, they're very nervous. They're very uneasy. Vaster's just like this, angry predator that's just roiling with rage.
I was getting uneasy too reading it.
I know some of the things too. Once, I'm kind of saving some, but yeah. Now Mace goes and talks to Depa, and she's trying to tell him, "No, you don't understand. You don't understand this kind of stuff." He tells her basically, "Look, he says, you're coming back with me." She's like, "There's no way. Vaster will never let me go. We're days away from even a place where you can call in your ships." And Mace says, "No, you don't understand. You're under arrest. Yeah, I am taking you back. You're relieved of your duties, and you're under arrest pending an investigation." And Depa says, she's like, "How many times you going to ask me to save your life?" Basically, it's kind of evident at this point the hostage that Mace is taking is himself. He's telling Depa, "If you don't come with me, I will stay here and eventually die because I'm not leaving without you." So the only way for Depa to save Mace, he's like his own hostage, is for her to comply and go with him, And she says, "Well, do I have my leave? If I promise not to get away?" He said, "I'll always trust you, Depa." So she is affected by the darkness, but she's also seemingly stuck there. So we'll find out a little bit more of her. Now we do find that she said there is no ULF. There is no Upland Liberation, company. She's made up all these stories. All it is Korans out there trying to live their life in the jungle,
Mhm.
and they do attack. They attack villages at random. So the Balawai and the cities are trying to get a system of logic to it, trying to find out what their pattern is, but there's no pattern. They're just the natives out there attacking villages and whatnot. There's no organized army. It's just the families, the clans, just those out there, and Carvaster, of course. So we find this out. Then Depa says Mace wants you to leave. You're allowed to leave with your life if you leave because you've disobeyed him and stuff like that. You let his hostages go and whatnot. And Mace like, well, now I need to go deal with Vaster. Whew.
Mhm.
And let me try and find a little bit to read here.
Remember in Superman Returns where they're on that kryptonite island thing and they start beating up Superman?
Yeah,
That's the feeling I got while watching that scene.
yeah.
Just so uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm not going to be able to read any scenes here. Al, if you want to read a certain scene, you can let me know. But I want to talk about what happens because it's just too much to read, and I do want to read the end of it. I'm definitely going to read. But
Right. Okay.
he says he gets down talking to Vaster, and it's funny. Some moments he's like Vaster's just like frothing at the mouth as Mace is goading him into a fight. And he says, if you guys got him neutered, he wouldn't be so wild and whatnot. And one of the Act guards is like, really don't want to be talking to him like that. And Vaster's just ready. And Vaster finally realizes Depa doesn't want you dead, but she didn't say I wouldn't have to wound you. So they're gonna fight now, and Mace is like, all right. And Mace takes off his vest with his lightsaber, tosses it aside, says, "That's how much I'm worried about you." He's gonna fight him. They're gonna fight with just their hands. And he says, "What are the rules?" And Vaster says, "Jungle rules." So they go at each other, and it's a very well written fight. Vaster is huge and powerful, but Mace is really kind of holding his own there for a while.
But
Good.
before you go further, though, Mick just had to bet on this thing.
I know. Yeah.
It's 100 credits as the Jedi makes Car cry like a baby. Who's in? I was like, good God, man.
Yeah. Now, Mace is holding his own for a while until Vaster starts to use the Force, like with force throws, using not really just fighting, but using the Force to throw him this way and that way. And Vaster's got the advantage here because of the dark energy in the jungle. We start to see Mace lose pretty roughly. I mean, it gets like he's really now Vaster's pretty beaten to snot too, definitely. But Mace is really worn down pretty much. And at one point he loses consciousness. And he says he comes back to consciousness, and Mace steps in, and Mace tells Nick, he said, "You tell him so that the writer can hear you. You're allowed to get up now if you want." And it's this real show of dominance, and Mace has to like totally humble himself. Like Carvaster's over him, is like, "Now you tell everybody who the big dog is." And Mace is having to say, Mace is like kneeling before him. You're the big dog. And it's like, tell everybody you're sorry for letting my hostages go. And Mace has to say, I shouldn't have done it. I'll never challenge you again. You're the stronger one. You're this, and that. And Mace is broken, bloody, and bleeding. It's a hard scene to read and watch. And when you're cheering for Mace, and especially when Mace starts to kind of kick a little butt, you're like, yeah, because you hate this guy Vaster. It's just like this jerk. He's an interesting character, but you want to see Mace kick his butt. But then to watch him kick Mace's butt instead, and then Mace just totally have to humble himself before him. It's hard. It's difficult. And Mace eventually says, "May I please have my lightsaber? Please, it's my only weapon. May I please have it?" He's begging Vaster for his lightsaber, and Vaster's like, "No, I'm not giving it to you." He's going to break it. He throws it away, and Depa calls out and says, she says, "Vaster, if he doesn't have his weapon when we turn him loose, he'll die. We need to tend his wounds first before we can turn him loose back to leave with his weapon." And she says, "You keep it. until we're ready to turn him loose, until he can walk enough to get him out of here. And Vaster agrees to that. Vaster holds onto the lightsaber, and Mace goes to ride in Deppa's in this big like covered think of like those things that people would ride on top of in Indians or in elephants in India, those big covered like tent things on top of an elephant or something like that. They're on top of some jungle beast, like that. So Mace goes into her little tent there. Nick helps Mace into the tent. And when they're in there, Nick's pretty ticked off. Nick's let me find this moment here.
Still serving as he helped me to my feet, muttering under his breath a continuous stream of invective characterizing Vaster as a lizard-faced frog swallower.
Yeah.
A demented, scab-chewing turtle sacker. I mean, he comes up with some interesting.
Yeah, Nick's angry because Nick is really loyal to Mace at this point. And Nick says, "I don't care what you say," he muttered darkly. "I don't care what Carr says. These were kids there and wounded. I mean, those Ballywide, they weren't evil. They were just people like us. Nearly everyone is. We did the right thing, and you know it." It dawned on me then that Nick was proud of himself, proud of what we had done. It may have been an unfamiliar feeling for him, that peculiarly delicious pride that comes from having taken a terrible risk to do something truly admirable, of overcoming the instinct of self-preservation, of fighting our fears and winning. It's the pride of discovering that one's merely a bundle of reflexes and conditioned responses. One's not merely a bundle of reflexes and conditioned responses. So Nick has finally started to realize higher morality here, not just jungle, survival. I hope I never forget the fierce conviction on his face as he helped me climb the extended leg of the ancox, that animal, and clambered up into the dorsal shell. Just because Carr beat you like a rented gong doesn't mean he was right. Just because he won doesn't mean you were wrong to challenge him. I can't believe you'd ever say those things. His answer, and then eventually Deppa speaks up and says, "If you spend much time around us, Nick, you will learn." Deppa's voice was strong and clear, as sane and gentle as it always been. "You will learn that Jedi do not always tell the truth." Nick stopped, suddenly scowling as though he found himself unexpectedly deep in thought. "Don't always..." "Hey," he muttered suspiciously. "Hey, wait 1 second here." She pulled back the curtain. She invites him in. Nick's eyes bulged in his head. "I knew it." He shook a fiercely triumphant fist in his face. "I knew it. I knew you could take him." Because Deppa tells him, "You sure can take a beating as usual." And "I've got you figured out. You hear me? I've got your Jedi butt scanned to the 12th decimal point. I should have known you were going to dive when you started to face Carr like that." And Mace tells him, "Oh, no, I didn't dive. He really did kick my butt." And he says, "So I don't understand." And Mace said, "I picked a fight that I knew I wouldn't be able to win because Vaster is stronger. He's younger. He's in the force, that darkness, that dark force surrounded area. Mace knew he was going to win the fight, but Mace did it anyway."
Had the home field advantage, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Vaster's very powerful, half my age, twice my size. Training and experience can compensate only up to a point, and he's naturally ferocious in a way that no Jedi can duplicate. Let's see. You find out that the whole thing, that's why they gave him your lightsaber. So Deppa was in on this too by giving him the lightsaber. He can't track Carr in the jungle. Carr's like one with the jungle darkness. So he can't sense Carr in the Force, but he can sense his lightsaber. So by giving Carr his lightsaber, he knows exactly where Carr Vaster is now at every moment. Remember, his only objective here is to get Deppa out of there. He saved the hostages. Now he needs to get Deppa and Nick now out of there. So by giving him the lightsaber, by that whole show of like, please let me have my lightsaber, it's my only weapon, he's playing into Carr's pride. He's playing into Carr's pride there. And you find that he did this whole thing. He picked this fight knowing that he would lose it. He had to try to lose. He had to try to win, or Carr would have sensed that. So he picked a fight knowing he would get beat to the brink. He did all of that because that's Carr's Shatterpoint. Carr's alpha male pride. Carr is a devolved little monkey jumping around beating his chest. He's powerful, like a real gorilla. It could tear you up if it's just you and a gorilla in a room, of course. But it's a devolved. Look at that little brain. Look at that little lower life form there, because of this pride. And Mace realized that, and Mace says that's his Shatterpoint. His pride. If I can get him so angry at me, he will be satisfied at having made me submit to him that he'll forget about the hostages. He'll let Nick live, and we can move on and try and get on out of here. that is just amazing. That level of logic. And he says, and that Jedi, he gives this wonderful speech that I do want to read, because this is what really just made me totally wowed at Mace Windu and really puts him on my list of heroes here. Let's see. He says, Nick's going, wow, I mean, wow, everybody hears about how scary Jedi are, but those stories aren't half of it. Your real powers don't have anything to do with lightsabers or picking up things with your minds. Nick shook his head uncomprehendingly. It's not natural, not just taking the beating, but bowing down like that and being able to come up with stuff like giving Carr the lightsaber. It requires a certain detachment of mind when your emotions are not involved. Answers are often obvious. It's still not natural. Can I just say here how much you two creep me out? When I was Mace's student, Depp mused, he would often remind me that nothing about being a Jedi is natural. Thought you guys were all about going with the flow and using your instincts and stuff. The difference, Mace said, lies in the instincts themselves. It is possible for an untrained Force user to wield as much power as the greatest of Jedi. Look at Carr. But untrained, the instincts he falls back on are those granted him by nature. It is another of the central paradoxes of the Jedi. The instincts we use are not instinctive at all. They are the product of training, so intense that they replace our natural ones. That's why Jedi must begin at such an early age, to replace our natural instincts territorially, selfishness, anger, fear, and the like. The Jedi instincts of service, serenity, selflessness, and compassion. And he talks about the oldest, the youngest childs and whatnot. He talks about the oldest child ever was 9, or that was, Anakin, obviously. Being a Jedi is a discipline imposed upon nature, just as civilization is at its root a discipline imposed upon the natural impulses of sentient beings. Because peace is an unnatural state. Peace is a product of civilization. The myth of the peaceful savage is precisely that, a myth. Without civilization, all existence is only the jungle. Go to your peaceful savage and burn his crops, or slaughter his herds, or kick him off his hunting grounds. You'll find that he will not remain peaceful for long. Isn't that exactly what happened here on Haroon Call? Jedi do not fight for peace. That's only a slogan, and it's misleading, as slogans always are. Jedi fight for civilization, because only civilization creates peace. We fight for justice because justice is the fundamental bedrock of civilization. An unjust civilization is built upon sand. It does not long survive a storm. Carr's power comes from natural instinct, but he is also ruled by instinct in a way that no Jedi ever is. A single Jedi who succumbs to his natural drives for power, for respect, for success, or revenge could do damage that is literally unimaginable. Mace, Deppa interrupted me softly. Are we still talking about Carr, or is this about Dooku? Because he's got this, and he says, and Mace said, or is it about her? And then Mace says, I sighed and lowered my head, suddenly aware of how exhausted I was, but still I finished the thought, less for Nick's benefit than for Deppa's and my own. And he says this line, which I think is just epic. He says, our only hope against beings whose instincts control them is to absolutely and utterly control our own. That is amazing. I'm going to read that again. Our only hope against beings whose instincts control them is to absolutely and utterly control our own. And you think about what that means. I mean, I used the example before about, the internet. It's often commented on about how people, they just think there are no consequences on the internet, and they'll puff up their chest and they'll call you a bleepity bleep and tell you to go kill yourself and all these kinds of things on the internet. They'll just devolve into the most horrible kind of people. And even if that's not that extreme, I mean, I get comments all the time. Your channel's dumb, your video, you're wrong, you're a bleepity bleep, this and that. And they just brush that off and walk right along, And now a person with pride, and alpha male type, Al, you got your milk too close to your mouth, I think. Hearing every little breath and mouth sound and everything there.
Oh, actually, that was my book. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I wasn't, because I actually was holding my breath. I wasn't even breathing.
Oh, okay. Like, something rubbing up against the mic then. Yeah, no worries.
It was like, that's...
Yeah. But it's got, you brought up Superman Returns, Al, and it's like that. You're absolutely right, that scene. But what I love about that scene, I talked about it when we did our rewatch, is that when Lex stabs Superman and drops him into the ocean there, with the kryptonite, Superman doesn't, when he revives and gets his strength back, he doesn't go there and kick their butts. He doesn't go there and land, because if he'd land there, he'd be landing on the playing field that they've already established. There's kryptonite on that island. You can't fight a troll like that by their rules. You can't fight them on their own terms or on their own ground in the fight that they already started, because there's no winning that. You have to devolve onto their level and lose part of your humanity for that. You will lose. And he also didn't just, like Superman in that scene, didn't just like hover about the air and, make them dance with his heat vision or something. He could have pridefully revenged. Instead, he realized these people, this thing that they've created in the ocean is unnatural. There's nothing I can do for them. They're beyond my saving. So instead, he goes into the ground and carves out that whole unnatural kryptonite island and just pushes it out into space. And they're frightened and they're running to get off, and they get off and whatnot. But that's the answer to dealing with this kind of thing. It will assuage your pride to go tell them, no, you're a bleepity bleep and blah blah blah. What does that really do? It only just devolves you. But if
Mhm.
you cut them out, block them, cut them out or whatever, or in Mace Windu's case here, realize, okay, what is the best outcome in this situation, and let's just use their weaknesses to get toward that. How are we all going to survive this? And that's just, man, that's a hero. The only hope for people whose instincts control them is to completely and utterly control our own. That's so non-intuitive, right? That's not instinctual. It doesn't feel good. You want to lash back out and but that's just becoming a little gorilla beating your chest back at them. I
Mhm.
love that. That's so I don't know. I just think it's so profound. But I've talked a lot about it. What do you think, Al?
Um, I think you're right. It's control versus no control.
Hmm.
And I just I mean, I'm still to where what Mace had to go through
Hmm.
in order to get what he I mean, that was I mean, he could have died easily.
It's self-sacrificing. It's very much a
Yeah.
Christ moment. He's sacrificing his own body, letting it be beaten and bloodied for the sake of those around him.
Mhm.
Yeah, letting them call out, insults upon him, letting it, it's very much a Christ moment, definitely.
I'm sure there's some Sun Tzu Art of War stuff going on in there too. I gotta read
Maybe,
that
I
book
don't know.
one day.
See you, Owen. Good night. Darth Enigma says, yeah, and you're right, Darth Enigma. They actually call it in the book. It's called a howdah. The tent
Mhm.
thing. You're right. Indian nobles and royalty would use them while riding their elephants. Yeah, exactly. The book actually calls it a howdah too. I just wasn't remembering that word. Yeah, definitely.
You
Um,
get the you get the impression it's almost this huge, almost like a living space
mhm.
up there on top of this
Yeah,
creature. It must be huge.
yeah. It's a lot of room because he can lay down fully in it. This
Mhm.
what was the beast called? I just read the name. Ak something or another. Anyway, I don't know. Um,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Casey Lork says the sudden reversal of attitude is also a good way of keeping people uncertain if you're for some reason in a situation where the doggy pack language comes into play. I used to be a trash man. This is kind of off the subject, but it's funny. It does have to do with this sort of primal instinctual mind. I used to be a trash man, and dogs generally don't like trash men coming, strange men coming to their house, this big loud truck, and there were plenty, and I never had a problem with the dog ever. I had plenty of times when a dog would run at me snarling, and what I would do in those moments, you can turn around and run, but that says, "Yep, yep, I'm prey. Come get me. Come bite into my butt." But when in those moments, I would bend down and call them over. Like they're running at you snarling, and I would say, "Come here, boy. Come here. Come over here, boy." I would just pretend like, and they get up to you, and it's this like strange look in their eye. They're like, "Oh, oh, okay." It's like you bluff them. It's like it's the same kind of thing as like huffing back at them and trying to prove that you got a bigger stick, but it's not quite that exactly. It's just saying, no, I'm not showing you fear. I'm not worried about you at all. Come over here and I'll pet you. And you exude that kind of calm and that kind of in the face of their, and it actually works. It works. It worked for me every time anyway. So yeah, it's that when people are totally ruled by their instincts, like May said, the only hope is to completely and utterly control your own. I could have been
Mhm.
terrified, and that would have just they'd have sensed that and felt it. But yeah. So anyway, um, I think Go Team Ghost Planet was
So
talking about a show or something.
I was wondering what's the next bit we're going to read
Oh
there.
yeah. Yep. Let's figure that out now. I lost my place here when I set the book down.
Okay. How does my voice sound now? Talking nice.
Oh, fine. Your voice always sounded fine talking. It was just when you were like rubbing the book up against the mic, I thought it was you breathing, but no, your voice is fine.
Yeah. I've got the microphone up at eye level, trying to see if that helps.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Yeah, nothing.
So having it like this, where
yeah, that's yeah. Keep it up at eye level. All right, so 2 chapters is too short. Definitely.
See if I'm right here.
Well, we had a long check last time. We could just read the next 3 chapters to finish out part 2, and then we've got part 3, which is Shatterpoint. So do you want a short time, Al, or do you want to go into part 3 and read the 16 as well? We can read through chapter 15 or chapter 16. You call it. 16 is pretty short, so up to you.
Well, I mean, it's a good place to end at the end of part 2, or right before part 3. But
all right, so we'll just end at chapter 15. At the end of chapter 15, we'll go 13 through 15 for next week. So yeah, we're seeing good character progression in Nick, and we're seeing Mace's progression in terms of understanding this place and understand what he has to do himself to survive here and to try to save Deppa. One part we didn't read is when he realizes he's only really there to save Deppa. Of course, he's there at the Jedi, orders and the mission, but his real goal there is to save Deppa, his daughter, quote unquote. So,
yeah, well, he said, because he says at one point, it's like he's in order to win, he has to set up what he considers will be the win, that is to save Deppa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything else is, if half the continent falls into the ocean or something, oh well, if I save Deppa, I won. I did my duty.
Yeah. So that's our stream for tonight. Any other things you want to add,
Al? Not especially. I mean,
okay. I know you guys. How did the Gone with the Wind rewatch go on your channel?
Oh, Gone with the Wind went cool. It was
cool.
It was a long night. Had the Birdman joined in a little bit, talked a little bit about the score, and it was a great discussion. We had a nice discussion afterwards too about several themes and concepts about from the film.
Good.
Like what possibly would happen, what would happen with Scarlet, and it was a really good discussion.
Cool.
Yeah, and we're doing Blade Runner 2049 this weekend on Netter's channel.
Okay, cool. And you got more content coming on your own, I'm sure.
In fact, I dropped. I was. It would have been before we started, but it took forever to do the check. I just uploaded my rambling review for Stranger Things season 4.
Gotcha. Yeah, because they finally released all the episodes, right? Gotcha.
Yep,
cool.
Last Friday, and just my typical little ramble about it.
And tomorrow I've got a video coming out. I forgot the exact title, but it's something to the effect of should Hollywood just start doing original movies? Is it time for them to stop? Should they just do original movies? There's a lot of aspects to that I go into. So be an interesting video. Yeah, more to come then. Well, that's all I've got. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Next week, 3 more chapters. Got lots of stuff coming out before then on both of our channels and whatnot. But until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.
Bye from you.